Chapter 131. Legend has it that, long, long ago, there was a Taoist named Qin Yangzi between heaven and earth. He firmly believed that the origin of animals was much older than that of humans. He thought that humans were nothing but evolved from some kind of animal apart from differences in thought and intelligence. Humans were merely a higher form of animal. When the epoch began and the era of cultivation dawned, the human race had martial artists while the beast race had monster beasts, the biggest. Difference between martial artists and monster beasts lay in the fact that humans cultivated much faster, nearly at double the speed of monster beasts. Yet the strength of the monster race was in their inherently powerful bodies, such that martial artists of the same realm found it hard to break through their defenses, making them almost no match for monster beasts. But precisely because of their strong bodies, each advancement required too much vital energy, resulting in their cultivation. Progressing exceedingly slowly, monster beasts often killed each other, for consuming the flesh and blood of their kind could increase their vital energy. Qin Yangzi always pondered a method, whether it was possible to fuse the bloodlines of the human race and monster beasts, to allow the human race to maintain their original cultivation speed, while also possessing the robust physiques of monster beasts. As the first monster beast of the beast race to bear destiny, Tyrant Emperor's impact on his kin was akin to the profound influence true martial great emperor had on the human race. Before his ascension, Tyrant Emperor passed on the cultivation technique, the great emperor's technique Force Ju, that he cultivated to many monster beasts, hoping that more talented disciples would emerge among the beast race. After several epochs, a python snake shed its skin to transform into a true dragon, bearing the destiny of that era, as the guiding cultivation technique on its path was the Force Ju of Tyrant Emperor. To honor the emperor and his spirit of selflessness, the true dragon declared itself the Strength Emperor. In the age of the Strength Emperor, Qin Yangzi approached him, shared his vision, and hoped to create a perfect species. The Strength Emperor readily agreed, and after hundreds of years of joint efforts of the two, a new species was born, half-beast people. Their experiment could be said to have succeeded, but also to have failed. The cultivation speed of the half-beast people might not be as fast as that of martial artists, yet their physical strength was greater. Although half-beast people couldn't surpass monster beasts in physical strength, their cultivation speed far exceeded that of the latter. Simply put, half-beast people combined the advantages of both martial artists and monster beasts, but also amalgamated the disadvantages of both. However, the mere existence of this species was tragic, as they bore features common to both the human race and monster beasts and thus were not accepted by either. What was more terrifying was that due to the impurity of the bloodlines within half-beast people, simply put, there was bloodline conflict. The end result was that when the conflict reached an irreparable point, their whole Bodis bloodlines would decompose and ultimately lead to death. The Strength Emperor regarded this as his own fault and went through great lengths to find a way to save the half-beast people. At last, he found the pure moon altar. These half-beast people only needed to change their blood every 3 months. Under the suppressive power of the pure moon altar, their lifespan could be greatly extended. But as people often say, there's something detestable about those who are pitiable in that era. The half-beast people, leveraging the guilt felt by the Strength Emperor towards them, could be said to have acted tyrannically, looking down upon both the human race and the beast race. After the Strength Emperor ascended, the half-beast people were immediately subjected to sanctions. The half-beast people of that era could be said to be targets of universal condemnation, nearly brought to the brink of extinction. Only a few half-beast people occasionally managed to hide and cling to survival, and over countless epochs, the population of half-beast people once again expanded. These half-beast people established a sect gate near the pure moon altar and named it the Myriad Beasts Sect. Because much time had passed, the misunderstandings and dissatisfaction people had towards the half-beast people had gradually diminished. Su Zime and Ren Pingsheng, after a long journey, returned to the true martial holy sect, which recently seemed unusually bustling. Many disciples were discussing the matters of the competition between the 7 sects, as well as the talented disciples from each sect. The competition between the 7 sects was considered the liveliest and most grand event in the extreme west region, held every 3 years. There was only one requirement for the participating disciples: they must not be over 30 years old. Each sect could send no more than 10 disciples to participate in the competition. It is said that after the 7 major sects stabilized the situation in the extreme west region, They mutually agreed to hold this competition every 3 years, a tradition which was actually quite ancient by now. This year, it just happened to be the true martial holy sect's turn to host the competition. Invitations had already been sent to the other 6 major sects half a month in advance. At this moment, inside the great hall of the true martial holy sect, the atmosphere was somewhat quiet. The third elder spoke up. Sect Master, we've received a message from the Myriad Beast sect saying they are going to close their mountain gate and will not participate in any affairs for the time being. It's estimated they won't be able to make it to the competition between the 7 sects this time. What's going on? Su Qingshan frowned slightly and asked, didn't they agree when we sent the invitations earlier? We are still investigating the matter. It may be something that happened recently, the third elder replied. Although there is no conclusive evidence yet, I suspect it's related to the bloodline in their bodies. You are in charge of this competition, and I don't want any accidents to occur, Su Qingshan said indifferently. Since they are not coming, then let's announce to the entire extreme west region that it will be changed to a competition between 6 sections. How should we select the disciples for the competition this time? The third elder asked. The core disciples are mostly over 30 years old and can't participate. If no one has any objections, I'll select disciples from within the inner gate according to the rankings on the Hidden Dragon list. Xia Hui is not over 30 years old. It's just that he usually disdains competing for the list, so he is not on the Hidden Dragon list, the fifth elder said from nearby. His strength absolutely qualifies him for this grand competition. Third elder might want to consider it. As the words of the fifth elder fell, the sixth elder, Xiao Ruoxue, quickly followed up. Xiao may not be on the Hidden Dragon list, but she has fully inherited the Empress legacy. She must have a place in this competition. How can I make selections when you throw in your candidates like this? The third elder looked at Su Qingshan with some dilemma and said, Sect Master, why don't we hold an internal competition within the sect? The higher-ranked disciples will then represent the sect in the grand competition. There's no need for that trouble. I am aware of both Xia Hu's and Bailey Xiao's strengths. Just include them on the list. As for the other disciples, select according to the rankings on the Hidden Dragon list, Su Qingshan said. Spread the word that in 3 days, we will select the disciples for the competition based on the rankings of the Hidden Dragon list. That should get those who usually hide their strength to fight hard for a place on the list. Chapter 132. I understand. The third elder nodded in agreement. In addition, I'm well aware of Zemo's strength. Reserve a spot for him as well, Su Qingshan said indifferently. The third elder was taken aback but still nodded in assent. The other elders around did not say much either. All of their direct disciples were over 30 years of age. Many of them had participated in the previous grand competition. Only the great elder's face looked unsightly. In fact, he had wanted to recommend his grandson, but considering Xiao Xingdia's recent state, he knew it was unlikely. His grandson had completely missed the opportunity to become the saint heir the day after Su Zime returned to Goose Southern Peak. The third elder came to visit and tested Su Zime's strength personally. When he found out Su Zime had already reached the pinnacle of the empty vein realm, the third elder's expression was almost frozen. Although Bailey Xiao had cultivated alongside Su Zime, it was understandable that her realm had advanced by leaps and bounds since she received the inheritance of the Empress, but for someone like Su Zime, who usually kept a low profile within the sect, to have secretly reached this realm was astonishing. He didn't know whether the deputy sect master had forcibly boosted him or if Su Zime's talent truly defied the heavens. Regardless, Su Zime now qualified to participate in the grand competition after the third elder left. Yen Buhue also made a special visit to Goose Southern Peak to see Su Zime. Upon seeing Yen Buhue again, he seemed much more mature than before. His sword chi was restrained, his white clothes whiter than snow, far from the sharpness he radiated when they first met. You seem to have changed a lot, Su Zime smiled. I have received the inheritance of the sword god. Yen Buhue did not hide it and admitted openly. Su Zime smiled, drew Tyrant Shadow from his back, and slashed. A torrent of water lifted endless blade chi. Splitting a chasm in front of them, Yen Buhue hurriedly drew his sword in response. His aura had been calm, but the moment he drew his sword, sharp sword light swept around him, the sword chi bursting with blinding white light, painful to the eyes, blade met. Sword, Yen Bui's expression changed, he grunted and stepped back several paces while Su Zime remained calm and unmoved. Su Zime chuckled softly, she'd tyrant shadow, and turned to walk out of the courtyard. Strive to chase after me, otherwise you'll lose even the right to look up to me. In the past few days, the rankings on the Hidden Dragon list of the Inner Gate had changed drastically with fierce competition. Many of the veteran Inner Sect disciples were squeezed out of the top 10, while some previously unknown or unheard of disciples climbed to the top 1 by 1. 3 days later, the True Martial Holy Sect confirmed the list of disciples participating in the grand competition between the 7 sects. A few days afterward, on an early morning, purple hues emanated from the east as a gentle breeze stirred the yellowing fallen leaves, whispering gently through the skies above the True Martial Holy Sect. The willow trees on either side of the sect gate swayed gently in the breeze, with leaves turning yellow in autumn and departing, the bare branches standing alone, reminiscent of past prosperity. A piercing cry shattered the comfortable tranquility as on the eastern side of the True Martial Holy Sect. A sun tumbled down from the sky, boundless flames engulfed the entire sky, crimson flames like the drapery of the evening's afterglow, turning half of the horizon a fiery red. If you look carefully, you'll realize it's not the sun but a golden crow that is even more blazing and brighter than the sun itself. The golden crow emanates dazzling golden light, and atop its back, there stands a group of youths in golden robes with their heads held high and chests puffed out. They have bright, piercing eyes, and their expressions are calm yet faintly tinged with excitement. Bathed in the golden radiance, they appear as warriors clad in golden armor. Meanwhile, another sharp cry rises from the west of the True Martial Holy Sect. A white song wand flaps its wings slowly as it flies in from a distance, its pure white body looking extremely sacred. A holy light radiates around it, and each time it flaps its wings, a few feathers flutter down gracefully. On the back of the Tsong Wan stand a group of women dressed in white, their garments as white as snow and their skin surpassing the whiteness of the snow itself. Their long hair flows in the wind, and each carries an aura of celestial spirit, as if they are fairies descended from heaven. Look, those are people from the Immortal Spirit Sect, a disciple exclaimed upon seeing the scene above the Tsong Wan. The Immortal Spirit Sect, a sect known for its beautiful women, is the dream destination for many male disciples, but unfortunately that sect does not admit male disciples. A demonic sword cuts through the silent expanse of sky, its piercing sound exploding at the edge of the heavens. In the south, demonic chi rises, shrouding the firmament in black. That demonic sword, 100 meters long, bears a group of youths in black robes, their gaze indifferent as they ride on the sword. An endless aura of killing intent emanates from them, and staring too long, one might envision a sea of blood in purgatory before their eyes. On the back of the black robes worn by these disciples, an embroidered character for prison can be seen. This sect is the strongest in the extreme west region after the True Martial Holy Sect, the formidable Purgatory Holy Sect, home to not one but 2 emperors. Under the sky tainted with demonic chi, the pleasant sound of flowing water suddenly rises. A waterfall cascades from the 9th heaven, plunging straight down 3,000 feet, its waters bursting with endless divine light. The water, formless and colorless, rushes through the void, transforming now into sky-reaching ancient trees, now into towering giants, now into an ancient divine beast. In the end, the waterfall's waters cover the vast seas, returning to their original form. And a group of youths in blue robes stand at its peak. On their blue robes, embroidered at the back, is the character for spring, marking them as members of the Holy Spring Sect. The only ones left are the people from the Yin-Yang Sect, murmurs a disciple as the disciple's voice fades. A resonating hum sound fills the space between heaven and earth, as if something has been awakened. There, a black and a white point of light appear at the very center of this universe, the 2 points intertwining with each other. And in an instant, the principle flows and the light blazes forth magnificently. It's as if the entire sky has been split in 2. Half turns black while the other half turns white. The black and white extremes blanket the entire canopy of the sky. It's as if a resonating sound from the great Tao descends, as if the sun and moon have begun to invert, with a long river rising from nothingness and turning into a sea of flames. Atop these black and white points stand a group of youths in black and white robes marked on the back with the dual symbols of yin and yang, surveying their surroundings. The leader among them is Wu Shouqing, the current sect master of the Yin-Yang sect. As everyone's hearts race with the shocking entrance of these 6 major sects, a loud laugh emanates from within the true martial holy sect. Welcome to our holy sect, all of you who have traveled from afar. As the laughter rings out, Su Qingshan steps from the void, each step encompassing heaven and earth. Chapter 133. Su Qingshan approached, each step spanning the heavens and the earth. As he took a step, the ceaseless flowing river that belonged to the Holy Spring sect suddenly halted, as if time and space themselves were forbidden with his step. The golden crows and Song Luan on both sides let out low cries, seemingly in fear of something, their proud heads slightly bowing, trembling. With his step, the long sword that pierced the silence began to shiver, and even the demonic qi that lingered around it seemed to recede. With his step, the yin and yang that divided heaven and earth appeared as mere ants that could be extinguished in the blink of an eye. He didn't need to deliberately search for the center of this world, he merely stood there. And no matter what he was doing or where he stood, he was the center of this universe. As Su Qingshan walked step by step towards them in that moment, whether it was the golden crow, Song Luan, the demonic sword, the river, or even the yin and yang that divided the heavens and the earth, they all seemed to become just a backdrop for him in everyone's eyes. There was only the man in green clothes, who seemed to carry the sky on his shoulders and trod upon the earth, propping up the firmament. Brother Qingshan, it's been a long time since that day. I've missed you. Luo Changhe, the sect master of Holy Spring sect, laughed heartily. Brother Changhe, long time no see. Su Qingshan also smiled, greeting the several other sect masters present afterward. He led the 5 great sects towards the true martial holy sect at this time. The true martial holy sect was bustling with excitement. In addition to the 5 strongest sects from the extreme west region attending the grand competition, many second and third tier sects, including the imperial households of the Purple Sun Empire and Greenwood Empire, had also received invitations to come and watch. Su Qingshan was in charge of receiving the 5 great sects, while the elders of the true martial holy sect were responsible for receiving the other second-tier sects and the like. The grand competition was scheduled for the next morning, and everyone was arranged to stay on the Kuning Peak of the true martial holy sect. However, no matter how lively the outside world was, Goose Southern Peak, where Su Zime resided, always remained peaceful. He leaned back in a deck chair in the courtyard, with the gentle autumn wind carrying withered leaves blowing down from the top of Goose Southern Peak, brushing across Su Zimei's face. At this moment, Xiao Gizi came in from outside and said to Su Zime, "Brother, I've gathered clear information about the other 5 great sections. Are you sure the Myriad Beasts sect won't be participating?" Su Zime slightly opened his eyes and asked, "The Myriad Beasts sect is not on the list for this competition, so they shouldn't be coming," Xiao Gizi slowly said. "This time, the ones with the biggest reputation and highest expectations are actually the saint heirs and saintesses of each sect." "Who are they? Tell me." Su Zime shifted to a more comfortable position, sitting up and asking. "From the Divine Sun Holy Sect, there is their saint heir Shenyuan Shentian. From Purgatory Holy Sect it's Tian Mozi. And though the position of Saint Sun for Holy Spring sect hasn't been determined yet, there is a monstrous prodigy in body cultivation in their sect, who is said to have a high calling. As for the Immortal Spirit sect, after Nie Zinking's death, they have chosen a woman named Xian Linger as their saintess. The most interesting is the Yin-Yang sect, who apparently just recently established their saint heir, a man named Chuyang. His strength is unknown, but as you know, brother, the Immortal Spirit sect has been hunting a young man named Chuyang lately. I heard because of this matter, the relationship between the Yin-Yang sect and the Immortal Spirit sect has become very tense. So, who is the one with the highest calling in our true martial holy sect right now?" Su Zime asked. "It's Bai Li Xiao, the niece of the 6th elder," Xiao Gizi replied. "After all, the title of the empress successor is quite impressive. These disciples are too much like frogs in a well. Once you make your move, brother, they'll understand that the so-called talented disciples are just a bunch of country chickens and street dogs. All right, stop with the flattery." Su Zime waved his hand and laughed after Xiao Gizi left. He took out several letters from his sleeve. "These were pieces of intelligence collected by Situ Yunqing from various channels. Suzime slowly opened the envelope. A month ago, an immortal mountain next to the immortal spirit sect suddenly burst into 10,000 feet of white light. This immortal mountain was left behind by a very famous ancestor of the immortal spirit sect. The peacock ancestral master. Some said that a mystical treasure had appeared, but the incident was quickly suppressed by the immortal spirit sect. Not long after, the immortal spirit sect appointed a woman named Xian Linger as the current saintess. Before this, no one had ever heard of her. Half a month ago, the Yin-Yang sect activated their sect's treasured Yin-Yang diagram. With an unknown purpose, a few days later, they named a youngster called Chu Yang as the saint heir. Deep within the 100,000 mountains, someone saw a giant measuring the earth and heaven with his feet, his purpose and strength unknown. After reading through the intelligence, a ball of blazing fire appeared in Su Zimai's right hand. He watched the envelope burn to ashes in the flames, then closed his eyes slightly and leaned back in his recliner, muttering to himself. He said, "Chu Yang, Yin-Yang sect, long time no see." Within the true martial holy sect, there is a separate space carved out, known as the Heavenly Domain. The Heavenly Domain was established during the era of Empress Hongtian and has a history of tens of thousands of years. This Heavenly Domain is a place specially prepared by the true martial holy sect for hosting some grand competitions. It has its own space and spans tens of thousands of square feet, with no end visible at a glance. In the center of the Heavenly Domain, there are nearly 100 arenas made of black tortoise true iron. These arenas are nearly 100 meters in length and width and are encircled by chains of iron. The durability of the arenas is such that they can withstand several attacks from martial artists in the Emperor Pulse realm. As the early sun began to rise, the autumn wind stirred up a few yellow leaves, and the morning light gradually poured down from the sky, heralding the start of a new day. Once all the sect gates had gathered, led by the true martial holy sect, followed closely by the 5 major sects, with the second and third tier sects trailing at the end. Everyone walked into the Heavenly Domain in great numbers. It took half an hour for the dragon-like procession to enter the Heavenly Domain. Completely bear in mind that just the second-tier sects who came to watch the grand competition numbered over 100 now. The areas around these nearly 100 arenas were filled with densely packed chairs. Of course, these chairs were prepared for some notable figures from the sects and talented disciples. Ordinary disciples could only stand at the back to watch. The 6th elder, as the person in charge of this grand competition, once everyone was settled, walked up to the central arena in a red robe, his presence bursting forth. "First, I would like to thank everyone for coming to watch the grand competition held by our true martial holy sect, Myriad Beast sect. Due to some special reasons, has withdrawn from the competition." The 6th elder stood on the central arena and announced loudly. Beginning from the era of the divine travel great emperor, the grand tournament of the 7 sects held every 3 years has continued thus. It has been held for thousands of years now, and the purpose of the grand tournament is to foster relations between the sects, to allow the young disciples to witness more youthful geniuses, to broaden their horizons, and to realize their own shortcomings. I will not say much more. Let me briefly introduce the rules of this competition. Chapter 134. This time, the 6 sects have sent out a total of 60 disciples. Based on the draw, they will select their opponents, the 3rd elder said slowly. The matches will be one-on-one, a single victory determining the outcome. The rule is that from 60 we go to 30, and from 30 to 15 when we reach 15, one person will draw a bye, and the other 14 will compete. As for who will draw the bye, that will be a matter of luck. From 15 to 8. For those remaining 8, we will determine their next opponents based on the duration of each match. The disciple who defeats their opponent in the shortest time will get to pick their next challenger. Do you understand? Understood. The disciples from the 6 major sects replied vigorously in their separate teams. Today here, we have gathered the majority of the powers from the entire Extreme West region. Gaining fame here means you will become famous across the entire Extreme West region. The 3rd elder's gaze swept over all the young faces present. His voice filled with spiritual energy, thunderously stating, "Bring out your full strength, the result of your decades of cultivation effort, today, right here, in front of your sect master, under the watchful eyes of so many." Make everyone remember your names." The third elder's words stirred the assembled youths, their excitement visible as even their complexions turned a shade redder. It was as if their hearts were filled with unreleased passion, suddenly making them feel as if they bore vast gorges in their chests. Their spirits soaring to the sky with one goal clear in their minds, to rise to fame and make a name for oneself. "It's great to be young, a few words can get them all fired up," Suzume, observing the youths nearby, remarked. "The martial stage is already set up, all roles are ready to enter the scene in turn." Standing beside Suzume, Bailey Xiao was dressed in white at the forefront of the line, her gaze fixed from the beginning to the end on the young man directly opposite her from the Yin-Yang sect. Xu Yang, wearing a robe representing the union of black and white, stared back at Bailey Xiao with just as much intensity. With their eyes locked across the space between them, traces of tears glistened in Bailey Xiao's eyes as she murmured to herself, "Big brother Xu Yang." She hadn't expected that the ordinary youth from that small mountain village had gone through so much hardship, achieving what he had without the help of resources or connections, becoming the saint heir of the Yin-Yang sect. Bailey Xiao felt a sense of pride deep inside, proud of Xu Yang and proud of herself as well. "Quite touching indeed," Suzume chuckled, watching Bailey Xiao's expression. "Tell me, if I were to crush his head like a watermelon, would you be heartbroken? You dare to kill someone during the 6th sect tournament?" Bailey Xiao turned her head and asked indifferently. "Accidents happen quite often, you know," Suzume replied with a smile. "Of course, if you start weeping and begging now, I might make his death look a little more dignified. You better take care of yourself first, don't fail to get past the first round," Bailey Xiao replied disdainfully. "No need for your concern." Suzume's smile turned wicked. "I plan to dismember him piece by piece right in front of you." Bailey Xiao frowned deeply, snorted coldly, and paid Suzume no more attention. When the tournament began, the disciples below the stage erupted into an overwhelming chorus of cheers. Being the home ground of the true martial holy sect, naturally, their sides' cheers were louder, almost drowning out the supporting yells from the other sects. The vibrant voices melded together, the space itself trembling with their resounding echoes. In these cheers, those supporting Bailey Xiao were naturally the loudest. With her beauty, talent in cultivation, and being the heiress of the empress, she was the dream of many disciples. Amongst this clamor, Suzume faintly heard cheers for himself as well. "Suzume, I want to bear your monkeys." His expression darkened. If it had been a woman's voice, it might have been okay, but these voices were particularly rough and masculine, and he had no idea where these men had sprung up from. Afterward, everyone began to draw lots. With a total of 30 numbers divided into 2 groups, disciples who drew the same number would face off against each other. Suzume looked at the number he had drawn and saw it was number 7. Once the groups were formed, Suzume stepped onto the platform designated for number 7. His opponent, dressed in a black robe, was a disciple from the Purgatory Holy Sect. That disciple glanced at Suzume and chuckled. "The son of the true martial holy sect's deputy sect master. Wouldn't my reputation soar if I eliminated you in the first round?" No sooner had the disciple's words fallen than a clang of a drawn blade rang out. He didn't even catch the shadow of the blade before he felt a stinging pain on his neck. The disciple's pupils constricted sharply. He reached down to touch his neck and saw the skin on the outside of his neck had been lightly cut. "You're quite lucky, I didn't miss," Suzume said with a light chuckle. "By the way, what did you just say?" "I didn't catch it." "Hee." The disciple forced out a dry laugh. "The wind today is certainly boisterous." Saying so, he walked down from the platform, his heart thumping uncontrollably. He had just skirted the edge of death. Down in the spectator stands, Yen Hong, the sect leader of the Purgatory Holy Sect, chuckled lightly. "Sect Master Su, your son is quite powerful, eh? He resolved the fight with our sect's disciple with a single draw blade technique." "It's just one match, it doesn't signify much," Su Qinshan said with a light chuckle, shaking his head. After Suzume defeated his opponent, he stepped down from the platform to watch the other contestants' bouts, because after the top 8, the disciple with the shortest duration in their duel had the right to choose their own opponent, so many were trying to resolve the fight as quickly as possible. Xu Yang held the Wandering Dragon Sword in his hand with a single stroke, a mix of Yin and Yang Qi spread. Yin and Yang Qi represent the way of opposites and the way of change. When the Yin and the Yang, two different and opposing extremities, exploded before his eyes, the disciple was blasted off the platform. Suzume's eyes lit up. Yin and Yang Qi. And not the acquired yin and yang, but the most primal innate yin and yang. This was a crucial item for constructing his own lives world. Suzume felt a sense of love and hate between him and Chu Yang. I was already planning to kill him. But before he dies, the guy has prepared such a big surprise for me. Suzume originally intended to look for the legendary Forgotten Dust Pearl and extract the innate yin and yang qi inside it to construct his lives world. Now it looked like, although he had taken away Chu Yang's world pearl from his previous life, Chu Yang's aura of fortune seemed to have found the Forgotten Dust Pearl again. What a treasure, Suzume muttered to himself, making him now a bit reluctant to kill. Wouldn't it be better to keep and nurture him? But, fearing that protraction might lead to complications, he didn't want the roles of hunter and prey to be reversed. With the end of the first round, 30 disciples were eliminated. The remaining 30 disciples drew lots again. And Suzume drew number 12. When he stepped onto the platform, he saw a young man in a golden robe with a sword in his embrace, already waiting for him. Isn't that Lin Yifei from the Cloud Sky Sword Forest? A disciple exclaimed in surprise from below. Chapter 135. Who is Lin Yifei? A disciple asked, looking puzzled at the golden-robed youth cradling a sword in his arms. Long ago, he was the most talented disciple of the Divine Sun Holy Sect, someone beside explained. Back then, he was hailed as the most likely to become the saint heir of our time. Unfortunately, later on, Xianyuan Xiantian emerged, sweeping almost all the young generation of the Divine Sun Holy Sect. Even Lin Yifei ended up as a defeated subordinate. Since then, he devoted himself to cultivation, and few people remembered him. Xianyuan Zuanshan's brilliance was simply too dazzling. On the combat stage, Lin Yifei slowly drew his Cloud Sky Sword. His sword's presence was like a rainbow, and his robe billowed without any wind. He opened his mouth slowly and said, "My sword is the sword of invincibility." Every time he uttered a word, the sword's presence around him became even more indomitable. I heard you lost to Xianyuan Xiantian? Suzume asked with a smile. Lin Yifei's aura faltered. He glanced at Suzume indifferently and continued to speak. The edge of my sword is revealed, refusing to break or bend, relentless and fearless. I heard you lost to Xianyuan Xiantian? Suzume continued to ask, though my sword may encounter obstacles, I am willing to believe in my sword. I believe that with the sword in my hand, I will forge ahead through brambles and thorns, striving straight to the other shore of the sword Tao and achieving the path of a sword god. I heard you lost to Xianyuan Xiantian? Go to hell. Lin Yifei's forehead veins bulged as he roared and charged at Suzume. Suzume shook his head and sighed. It's a pity. Your slogans are so loud, but your heart is in disarray, and so is your sword. He pulled out the tyrant shadow, and with one chop, there was a Changha breaking the day, heavenly thunder thundering with divine might, and amidst the clash of the raging torrent's waters, a hurricane howled. With just one strike, Lin Yifei's complexion drastically changed. The Cloud Sky Sword in his hand flew out, and he himself fell at the edge of the platform. Lin Yifei stared blankly at everything before him, unable to believe he couldn't even take one move. Is this your sword, Tao? A voice of disappointment sighed from beside him. Lin Yifei hurriedly turned his head to look, and saw the sect master of the Divine Sun Holy Sect, Song Songlin, standing nearby. Haven't you emerged from Shenuan Zuanshan's nightmare yet? Song Songlin shook his head with a sigh, then turned and walked away. Lin Yifei fell silent for a moment, picking up the Cloud Sky Sword that had fallen nearby, his silhouette like a curtain closing as he left the combat stage. He had forgotten many things. Why was he practicing the sword? What was his own sword Tao? All he remembered was that he had once been the most dazzling of his sect, the closest contender for the position of Saint Heir, until the emergence of a youth named Shenyuan Shintian shattered all his dreams, and never again could he find the glory of the past. Is Senior Brother Su that strong? To think that Cloud Sky Sword could be defeated so easily, a disciple said in disbelief. It seems unfathomable, but it looks like Lin Yifei wasn't in the right state today. Another disciple said doubtfully. Suzume stepped down from the combat stage, noting to himself that the contests between the other sect heirs seemed to be one-sided affairs. As for the fights among the other disciples, they were fiercely competitive, evenly matched. After 30 disciples were eliminated, leaving only 15, they began the next round of drawing lots. Suzume looked at the number he drew. Momentarily stunned, it read number 8, and number 8 was the bye position. He glanced in the direction of the three elders and saw that their expressions were normal, as if they knew nothing. He himself did not believe for 1 second that the drawing hadn't been tampered with. If by chance the sacred children of two sects were drawn together in the first round, that would make things very interesting. After all, the main events are always in the latter part, with Suzume receiving a bye. He could only stand below the stage and watch the others compete. What caught Suzume's interest was Xianlinger from the Immortal Spirit sect. Clad in white and wielding a green soft sword, she didn't even use any vein skills, relying on only the most basic sword techniques, which seemed to have been honed for hundreds of years in her hands, appearing extremely natural and effortless. The impenetrable shadow of her sword created layers of patterns on the stage, and her opponent was quickly defeated off the platform. The competition was nearly over, with many having already secured their victories. Among these winners were Suzume, Xianlinger, Bailey Xiao, Chu Yang, Tian Mozi, and Shenyuan Shintanao. Only 2 stages remained active in battle. One wasn't very interesting as both disciples lacked strength. However, the other stage drew everyone's attention. It featured twins, Jiang Yu and Jiang Heng, who looked exactly alike. They were the Holy Spring sect's strongest contestants this time, and if nothing unexpected happened, one of them would likely become the next Saint Air Blood Brother against Blood Brother. This sparked interest among several disciples watching below. I was thinking that the 2 Jiang brothers could make it into the top 8, but it's unexpected that they've met so soon, lamented a disciple from the Holy Spring sect. It's fine, I support Jiang Yu anyway, responded a disciple nearby. That's true. After competing for over 10 years, Jiang Yu has always been the one suppressing Jiang Heng. Hearing the conversation between the 2 disciples, other sect's disciples also became curious and started asking questions. Their story is full of drama. Jiang Yu is the older brother, Jiang Heng the younger. It's said that when they were young, they happened to save a strong figure by chance. Unfortunately, the figure was so badly injured that the crude pills they had could not heal his wounds. As he lay dying, he wanted to pass on his martial path to them, telling them he had cultivated 2 ultimate forms of martial arts. One represented the ultimate in offense, and the other represented the ultimate in defense. He asked which they wanted to learn, so Jiang Yu chose defense and Jiang Heng chose offense. This story sounds a bit like the spear and shield paradox. The man claimed his spear was so sharp it could pierce all things, and his shield was the ultimate, capable of withstanding any attack. Someone asked him, "What happens when your spear strikes your shield?" And the answer to that was being played out between the 2 brothers. They had been competing for more than a decade since receiving their legacies, each striving to prove that their ultimate form was the strongest. Yet in more than 10 years of rivalry, Jiang Heng's offense never broke through Jiang Ye's defense. He was always outmatched and had never won, even though they were twins and looked identical. There were significant differences in their physiques. Jiang Heng appeared somewhat frail, whereas Jiang Ye's muscles were prominently defined, creating a very striking impression. "Big brother, just admit defeat. I'm not the same as I used to be," proclaimed Jiang Heng, raising his fists as golden spiritual energy transformed into bursts of force that separated the space around them. "My foolish little brother, it's you who should admit defeat," Jiang Yu said with a light laugh. "In these past years, you've never beaten me once." Chapter 136. "Then try and you'll know." Jiang Heng snorted coldly, his fist enveloped with a forceful energy. A gust of wind swept beneath his feet, white spiritual energy engulfing his whole body as he directed a punch towards Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu chuckled lightly, not dodging or avoiding, simply letting the fist smash into his abdomen. "My foolish brother, after all this time, it seems your attack strength hasn't grown in the slightest." As the fist collided with his abdomen, Jiang Ye's expression remained unchanged, his body motionless as if he felt nothing. Jiang Heng's gaze hardened, letting out a few light roars, as he threw several more punches in succession. "Although I'm sorry, this time, I will take the spot," said Jiang Yu, his palms sweeping out towards Jiang Heng as he spoke. Jiang Heng snorted coldly and quickly retreated backward. By the time Jiang Ye's palms were still in the air, Jiang Heng had already moved to one side. "Your speed has increased so much. Jiang Yu said with narrowed eyes. Noticed, have you? Jiang Hung sneered, rushing forward, his body leaving a trail of afterimages in the air. The two fought for a while, and Jiang Ye's expression changed slightly. Jiang Hung's speed was much faster than his. He couldn't even touch the edge of his opponent's clothes with his attacks, although his own defensive power was astonishing. Every one of Jiang Hung's strikes landed in the same spot on his abdomen at first. He didn't feel it, but as the blows kept coming, Jiang Yu began to feel a distinct pain. You have abandoned your own path of extremity? Jiang Yu shouted. The two had been rivals since they were young, with Jiang Hung obsessed with the way of attack, while he was obsessed with defense. As for other aspects like speed, they had not deliberately trained. That's not important. As long as I can win against you, that's enough. Jiang Hung roared back. His body was slender, but at this moment, with his right fist raised high, veins bulging all over his body, his eyes protruding, it was as if all the efforts of the past decade were condensed into this one punch. When this punch hit Jiang Ye's abdomen, his complexion changed dramatically, and his previously unyielding body hit the iron chains at the edge of the arena with a heavy thud. My dear brother, it's time for you to experience what I've felt all these years. Jiang Hung stepped forward and spoke indifferently. In front of so many people here today, I will repay all of my defeats over the past decade. Does it feel desperate? I just find it ironic, Jiang Yu replied faintly, that a person who adhered to his martial path faith would lose to someone who abandoned it. Let me repeat, I did not abandon my martial path, it's just that the previous way of extremity didn't suit me, Jiang Hung replied. That path was too hard to follow, although there are many examples of great emperors before us, like the offensive way of the great emperor of the Three Blades and the speedy way of the divine travel great emperor. But how many great emperors of the Three Blades are there in this world? I told you back then that I wanted to be like the great emperor of the Three Blades, to entrust my life to power, but it was too difficult. I was just talking, inside my heart, my soul, and the conviction that is etched into my bones and merged into my blood all tell me that I cannot achieve the great emperor's level of purity. Some paths are dead ends from the beginning. Trying is not wrong, but it's useless if the direction is wrong. So a year ago, I started to slow down the cultivation of my attack and began enhancing my defense and speed. Actually, we were both wrong. The path of extremity is too difficult to walk. That's you. Don't lump me in with you, Jiang Yu said, after a moment of silence, bellowing. Even if I crash into the south wall, I won't turn back. But you lost? Jiang Hung responded calmly. Hearing Jiang Hung's words, Jiang Yu fell instantly silent, knowing that no matter what he said, all vigorous explanations turned pale in the face of defeat. As the two conversed in the arena, the sect master of the Holy Spring sect, Luo Changhe, slowly stood up and walked forward to observe them. Sect master. The two of them hurriedly greeted. Actually, both of you are right, Luo Changhe said with a smile. Don't be nervous, Jiang Hung did nothing wrong. Sometimes when a path is impassable, it's perfectly okay to give up and try a different direction. Who knows, you might discover a whole new world. As for you, Jiang Yu, you're also right. Some paths, though difficult, will reveal a broader world to you if you persist. There's more than one path to success. Remember this. There are no eternal losers in this world, only temporary victors. Hearing Luo Chang's words, both fell into deep thought. The competition from 15 to 8 has ended, and the upcoming semifinals should be considered the most spectacular stage of this contest, because the few remaining in the arena are the most highly regarded saint heirs and saintesses of their respective sects, of course. Except for Su Zime and another disciple called Lin Hang, whose reputations were not as significant, the other 6, Shenyuan Shen-Tian, Xian Linger, Bailey Xiao, Chuyang Tianmozi, and Jiang Hung were very well known. The next round of competition didn't require drawing lots, but was based on the total time taken in the previous contests, allowing the disciple with the shortest time to choose their opponent first, as Su Zime had resolved all his matches with a single blow. His time was naturally the shortest. Su Zime glanced at the 7 people next to him, noting that the rest appeared indifferent, but that disciple named Lin Hang seemed quite eager to try. All right, you it is, Suzume pointed at Lin Hang, chuckling. Thank you, thank you. The youth named Lin Hang hastily expressed his gratitude. Thank for what? Suzume asked, puzzled. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make it into the top 4. Lin Hang replied. So confident? Suzume was somewhat taken aback. While you are tough to deal with, compared to the other demons, I still have some confidence. Lin Hang responded with a smile. Looking down on everyone, Suzume shook his head and laughed. Well, good luck to you. Then Bailey Xiao, the second fastest disciple, chose Jiang Hong as her opponent. The third person, Shenyuan Shentian, looked at Xianlinger and said with a smirk, if you're willing to join me, I'll let you go. Crazy, Xianlinger snorted coldly. Then he'll just have to beat you into submission. Shenyuan Shintan replied nonchalantly. Smiling, what remained then were Chu Yang and Tian Mozi. As the contest began, the disciple named Lin Hang's body swirled with spiritual energy and he slowly stretched out his right hand, smiling, I've been preparing for this match for a long time. As he extended his right hand, a dark yellow whirlwind of sand began to spin in the palm of his hand. Su Zimai's gaze sharpened as he said, lost divine wind. Exactly, although I know it's difficult for me to get first place with this lost divine wind, if I'm lucky, I have a chance of making it into the top 4, Lin Hang said with a smile. Chapter 137. The dark yellow sand twirled around Lin Hang's palm, and when someone stared at this sand for a long time, they would even start to see hallucinations. The lost godly wind was very rare as far as Su Zime knew. The most common place to find it was in one of the 10 great forbidden lands, the City of the Lost. In the City of the Lost, lost godly wind could be seen everywhere. The greatest effect of this wind was to induce hallucinations. People of low cultivation would go insane if touched by this wind, and even those with high cultivation would temporarily have their 5 senses shielded within the lost godly wind, including touch, taste, sight, hearing, and smell, after martial artists reached the empty vein realm and condensed their true fate. Although they still could not make their true fate emerge and exert 100% of their strength, they could still make use of some of the power of their true fate. Lin Hang's true fate was precisely the lost godly wind. When he waved his hands, the howling divine wind enveloped the entire arena. It seemed to have no substantial effect, but it kept attacking Su Zimai's spiritual layers, unfortunately. What Lin Hang didn't know was that Su Zimai's divine soul strength was from being reborn from the divine vein realm in a previous life, and such a scale of divine wind had no effect on him at all when the divine wind covered the arena. Lin Hang's figure also gradually disappeared within it. The spectators from outside could only see a flurry of flying sand and stones as the fierce yellow wind howled past before their eyes. Su Zime slowly closed his eyes, just as he had in the painting palace where he had to find the most real maple leaf among thousands of maple trees. At this moment, his mind was unprecedentedly calm. The surrounding lost godly wind seemed to have no effect on him at all. A sharp sword chi attacked from behind him, and Su Zime quickly swung Tyrant Shadow, colliding heavily with the longsword. A dull grunt was heard amidst the yellow wind, and then everything returned to calm. The lost godly wind still howled around, and Lin Hang, hiding inside it, seemed somewhat anxious. It must be known that the power consumed by using his true fate was enormous, and he couldn't hold on for much longer. He quietly moved to Su Zimai's side and stabbed out with another sword, the golden spiritual energy filling the sword, but unfortunately it was once again blocked by Su Zime. Lin Hang's expression changed slightly. He didn't know whether Su Zime had a way to detect his position, but otherwise, he wouldn't be able to block every attack. Just as Lin Hang was becoming anxious, Su Zime, who was originally closing his eyes in front, suddenly opened them and rose abruptly, slashing his blade towards Lin Hang. The blade flashed with thunderbolt light, and Lin Hang was shocked. This guy isn't affected by the divine wind and can see me. However, he couldn't avoid the attack now, as Su Zimai's speed was just too fast. When Tyrant Shadow broke through the divine wind, charging forward relentlessly towards him, Lin Hang instinctively raised his sword to meet it. Blood scattered into the air, and an arm flew out from the sky. The lost godly wind gradually dissipated, and as the scene on the arena became clear, everyone could only see Lin Hang half kneeling on the ground, holding his left shoulder with blood streaming down his Expression one of pain, his left arm had disappeared without a trace, while Suzume stood tall, looking down at him with a light chuckle. It seems your luck isn't so good. You did it on purpose, Lin Hang shouted angrily at Suzume. Without his arm, it would be very difficult for him to return to his prime in this life. Unless there was some high-level spiritual medicine, his combat strength would be seriously reduced. What happened? The third elder stepped onto the arena, beginning to check the situation. Brother Lin, are you okay? It doesn't matter, right? Suzume quickly walked up and grabbed Lin Hang's shoulder, asking with concern, Damn it, it's all my fault for not controlling my strength well. Can you not touch my wound? Lin Hang's face nearly twisted in pain. All right, accidents happen in matches. Just be more careful next time. The third elder looked deeply at Suzume before saying to Lin Hang, You should go down and heal your injuries. After stepping down from the arena, Suzume discovered that someone had finished even faster than himself. Bailey Xiao had already defeated Zhang Heng and was standing on the side, watching Chu Yang's match from the surrounding discussions. Bailey Xiao seemed to have used only one move, so fast it was almost invisible to the naked eye, directly knocking Zhang Heng off the stage. Based on Suzume's judgment, Bailey Xiao's strength shouldn't have been strong enough for that, so it seems she must have used the power of the flying immortal body, of course. Suzume could guess the reason why Bailey Xiao did that. On the arena at that moment, Chu Yang and the heavenly demon heir were fighting intensely. Chu Yang, wielding the wandering dragon sword enshrouded in yin and yang qi, was attacking with wide, sweeping moves, almost overpowering the heavenly demon heir. The heavenly demon heir was also using a black long sword, despite being at a disadvantage. He remained calm and collected on the other side. Xian Linger's battle with Shenyuan Shintian was somewhat more brutal. Shenyuan Shintian, armed with a huge axe, created rifts in space with every chop, his Jing Qi surging powerfully. No matter how clever Xian Linger's swordsmanship was, he overwhelmed her with sheer brute force, his aura raging and keeping her firmly suppressed. The heavenly demon heir took a slight step back. His true fate was the sword of slaughter, and as the power of his true fate merged with him, his eyes turned blood red, and he charged at Chu Yang as if he was throwing his life away. He was completely trading wound for wound, life for life. Seeing the heavenly demon heir's frenzied attack, a yin-yang diagram phantom appeared above Chu Yang's head. He too fought recklessly against the heavenly demon heir. The two exchanged blows, their bodies already drenched in blood, yet they fought as if they were immune to pain. Suzume watched their crazy fighting and couldn't help but smile. It seems that the yin-yang sect opened the yin-yang diagram back then just to help Chu Yang condense his true fate. After all, with the protection of eternal resentment, Chu Yang couldn't feel any pain. But after self-mutilating for a long time with Chu Yang, the heavenly demon heir's pain finally pulled him out of his frenzy. Even he hadn't expected to meet someone even more ruthless than himself. His body ached unbearably, and even the slightest movement felt as if his body was being torn apart. This hesitation allowed Chu Yang to catch a flaw and forcefully cut him down from the arena. After Chu Yang's match ended, the sect master of the yin-yang sect, Wu Shaoqing, personally tended to his injuries. After all, the matches that followed were going to be even more brutal, with the full-powered treatment from a Saint Vane realm strong. Chu Yang's wounds were slowly healing. Elsewhere, Xian Linger was growing impatient with being suppressed by Shenyuan Shintan. Suddenly, a crisp bird call echoed around her, and an imposing aura spread throughout the vicinity. Everyone looked toward the sound, only to see a gigantic peacock, like a shadow eclipsing the sun, standing behind Xian Linger. The peacock, several meters tall, had a crown of blue feathers that looked sharp and emerald green on top. Chapter 138. Its tail feathers were especially long, and when the plume fanned out, one could glimpse what seemed like countless blue-black eyes within it. Vibrant and beautiful, and also very peculiar. The background of this woman is somewhat extraordinary. Some sect masters from the smaller sects murmured amongst themselves. It's unclear what her connection to the peacock ancestral master is. The Peacock Ancestral Master was a talented disciple from an earlier era who had competed with the great Emperor Tianqi for destiny and was also one of the most magnificent individuals in the history of Immortal Spirit sect. Watching the enormous peacock, Suzume shook his head with a smile. Indeed, the nirvana flame left by the ancestor of wind gave you a chance to undergo a complete transformation, providing you with a new body and once again the qualifications to vie for destiny. Unfortunately, this era is no longer yours. As Suzimai's silent murmur finished, a vibrant golden light suddenly erupted from Xianyuan Xiantian across from him. His entire being was like a ball of fire, and the searing heat began to melt the surrounding space anxiously. The peacock beside him let out a shriek and watched the ball of fire with wary eyes. A huge golden crow emerged from the flames. Its wings, which could cover the sky, overshadowed half of the firmament, resembling a lofty ruler looking down at the peacock from above. We really are quite matched, Xianyuan Xiantian laughed. Your true fate is the peacock and mine is the golden crow. How do you like my bird? Upon seeing the descent of the golden crow, Xianlinger's expression subtly shifted. With a profound look in her eyes, she pointed the tip of her soft green sword and the peacock let out a low cry, heading straight towards Xianyuan Xiantian. Xianyuan Xiantian laughed out loud, taking to the air while the golden crow behind him roared towards the sky, its claws, suffused with fiery flames, viciously reaching down. The peacock's back was gouged open with a huge hole, crying out in pain as the golden crow's radiance on its body grew ever more intense. It pierced through the peacock, charging directly at Xianlinger. Xianlinger's face turned ashen, quickly raising her soft green sword to slash at it. The colossal golden crow exploded around her, and waves of energy ripples surged, flipping Xianlinger right out of the ring. Xianlinger landed awkwardly below the stage, then quickly stood up, giving the stage a deep glance, a sense of powerlessness hidden in the depths of her eyes. Back then she too had competed for destiny at the pinnacle of the firmament against a man named Tian Qi, but unfortunately she had failed. She had thought that starting over in another life would make for better prospects. But the evils of this era were even more terrible than during her own. Xianlinger shook her head slightly. In fact, her determination was stable and she wasn't disheartened by several defeats, but at this moment she began to doubt herself. A feeling of powerlessness about whether she could shoulder destiny. All is past. The heroes of yesteryear are now led to today. Following the end of the quarterfinals, only 4 disciples remained: Suzume, Bailey Xiao, Chu Yang, and Xianyuan Xiantian, although Su Qinshan, watching from below the stage, maintained a calm expression, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up, revealing his inner pleasure. After all, having 2 disciples from the true martial holy sect make it into the top 4 in the great competition of the 6 sects was a matter of pride for him as the sect master. Brother Qingshan, perhaps this year we'll see an internal struggle for first place within your true martial holy sect, Luo Changhe said with a smile from nearby. If Bailey Xiao and Su Zime managed to defeat their respective opponents, it was possible that they would then compete against each other for first place. It's hard to say, Su Qingshan modestly shook his head and replied. After all, the other competitors are not simple either. Since Bailey Xiao had taken the shortest time in her previous match, she had the right to choose her opponent. Bailey Xiao stood up and glanced at the 3 people present. She then turned her gaze to the 3rd elder, who was presiding over the competition, and asked softly, "3rd elder, may I freely choose anyone as my opponent?" "Of course you can," the 3rd elder nodded in affirmation. "Good, then I choose." Bailey Xiao paused for a moment and finally fixed her gaze on Su Zime, saying earnestly, word by word, "I choose Su Zime." The disciples present burst into an uproar upon hearing Bailey Xiao's choice. How could internecine strife break out between 2 disciples of their own sect before any external opponents had been dealt with? Su Qinshan snorted coldly and slammed his right palm down onto the seat beside him. "Shower, what are you doing?" The 6th elder, Xiao Ruoxue, also called out in confusion. "Is my choice a problem?" Bailey Xiao asked, not minding the reactions of the crowd. Instead, she looked toward the 3rd elder. The 3rd elder was taken aback for a moment but then nodded with interest, saying, "You can." Su Zime walked up to the platform with a hint of amusement. Previously, Bailey Xiao had been willing to use her flying immortal body to quickly end the battle in the last match just to gain this privilege of selecting her opponent first. After Su Zime slowly stepped onto the platform, Bailey Xiao glanced at Chu Yang beside her, gave a sweet smile, then turned and walked onto the platform with an indifferent expression. Bailey Xiao's thoughts were simple. She actually felt that Su Zime posed a greater threat than Xianyuan Xiantian, being Chu Yang's opponent. Although Xianyuan Xiantian was strong, his abilities were all out in the open, but Su Zime was like a fog, with little known about him, and the unknown was always the most terrifying. Moreover, Su Zime always seemed to harbor some inexplicable hostility towards her and Chu Yang, a point even Bailey Xiao herself couldn't fathom, as she did not recall ever offending Su Zime. Bailey Xiao thought that if she could defeat Su Zime, it would be for the best. Even if she couldn't win, she could at least force all of Su Zime's strength out into the open, dispersing this profound and boundless fog so that Chu Yang could be better prepared. Bailey Xiao believed that she wasn't weaker than Su Zime. Especially having inherited the Empress legacy, she might even be stronger. The breeze blew gently from afar. The girl's jet black hair was tied behind her back with a pink ribbon, and her white dress danced in the wind. Her skin was fairer than snow, with red lips and white teeth, and eyes that were like clear pools of water, bright and penetrating. "Do you have any idea how disgusting this approach is?" Su Zime said with a faint smile. "The sect has given you everything, but now you repay kindness with grievance. Are you afraid?" Bailey Xiao stood with her sword drawn, her voice clear and ringing like a lark in the woods. "For someone who has died once, there's nothing to fear," Su Zime replied with a shake of his head, smiling. "I'll take responsibility for what I do," Bailey Xiao said calmly. "It doesn't matter to me, but you're challenging the limits of some people," Su Zime said, glancing in the direction where Su Qinshan was under the platform. "The Empress legacy doesn't give you the right to be so presumptuous. That's not for you to worry about." Clad in white, Bailey Xiao's longsword in hand shone with a radiant light. Chapter 139. Bailey Xiao cultivated the Hongtian holy scripture left behind by Empress Hongtian. When the sacred light shimmered on the longsword in her hand, a strand of purifying brilliance descended from the heavens, enveloping her entirely. A glint of sharp light flashed across Bailey Xiao's eyes, her white clothes fluttering. An aura of commanding presence surged around her ceaselessly. She took a half step back with her right leg, her right arm slightly bent, and charged directly towards Su Zime. The longsword left a series of conspicuous white traces in the air, and the piercing sound of the sword's whine echoed to the heavens. Su Zime chuckled lightly, drawing tyrant shadow from its sheath, fierce flames engulfing the blade. While the air around the curved blade smoked white with burning, sword and blade clashed, sparks flew, and a bleak murderous intent spread between the two. Su Zime chuckled again. The fierce flames on the curved blade rushed toward Bailey Xiao, and with a powerful slash, Bailey Xiao reeled backward 3 or 4 steps. Bailey Xiao's gaze intensified. The longsword in her hand gathered holy light, which transformed into the shape of a white cloud. The clouds rolled and billowed as though they contained the great Tao of all things. She swung her longsword abruptly. The white cloud dissipated. "Through the passing years," she murmured softly, "scatter cloud." Watching the sword light shatter before his eyes, Su Zime chuckled and said, "Slightly interesting." He picked up Tyrant Shadow, and invisible energy spread around him as he roared softly. Way of Inquiry: 3 moves to win every battle. The shattered white clouds mixed with the holy light dazzled before him, carrying an unstoppable momentum as they collided with Tyrant Shadow, but Su Zime remained unmoved, just chuckling while watching Bailey Xiao rift space. Bailey Xiao's eyes focused. She slowly raised her longsword. The momentum of the holy light shifted again, and the surrounding space showed layers of fissures. Every space the longsword passed through was completely shattered. Way of Inquiry: 4 moves against the current, as if a long river from distant skies flowed before our eyes. Su Zime's Tyrant Shadow bore a tenacious blade momentum, flowing upstream against the current. The sword energy capable of splitting space seemed to pose no threat at all. Point kill. Bailey Xiao cried out again, and in that moment, everyone's vision went dark, as if a dawn appeared amidst that darkness. The dawn approached from afar, moving extremely fast, and within a breath it already appeared before Su Zime. Way of Inquiry: 5 moves, Great Wind Soars. The raging winds danced wildly. At this moment seeds sprouted, breaking through the earth, piercing the dark, as everything else seemed to simply drift with the current in this violent storm. Bailey Xiao's figure flickered. Gusts swept past her feet, and she had already moved behind Suzume Moonslay. She raised the longsword above her head. A bright moon rose gently, a vast radiance burst forth upon it, the moon accompanied by Wu Gong's fierceness. Charged towards Suzume, way of inquiry 6 moves, Slaughterblade. Suzume didn't turn back, he simply sliced with the blade, the sky filled with blood chi, and the blood-red curved blade pierced right through the bright moon. Dull, Suzume smiled, shaking his head. The 7th move, Wind and Cloud Transforming Dragon, was released, and the dragon's roar resounded through the heavens as the gale lifted endless dust. Fei Hong, Bailey Xiao let out a light cry, her complexion changing. Drastically, her boda's holy light intensified, swiftly fleeing into the distance. The sweeping sandstorm condensed into the shape of a long dragon, the dragon's roar in the wild, charging rapidly towards Bailey Xiao when the storm struck Bailey Xiao's back. A muffled groan was heard and her body fell heavily on the arena. Bailey Xiao quickly got up, her eyes grave as she watched Suzume. Bring out whatever moves you have left. Suzume smiled and said, what about your flying immortal body? Why don't you use it? Bailey Xiao snorted coldly, and at this moment a streak of white light flashed around her. It was as if this white light dazzled all the things in the world, shooting up into the sky and dyeing the entire firmament snow white, a shadow. As if crossing from the 9th heaven to the 10th earth, shattered space and confused time, merging with Bailey Xiao's body, and an unimaginable aura encircled her. At that moment, her hair turned completely snow white, as did her pupils and skin. She resembled an ice sculpture, and when Bailey Xiao opened her eyes, the woman who looked like an ice beauty emitted a piercing chill from her gaze. At that moment, everyone saw Bailey Xiao's right hand slowly swing. An action so mysterious and slow that it seemed anyone could easily avoid it, but on the opposite side of the dual platform, Suzaime's shoulder suddenly recoiled as if struck by something, causing him to stagger back 2 or 3 steps. All those present were instantly shocked. Is this the speed of the flying immortal body? Someone muttered, worthy of being ranked 7th among the 100 great battle bodies indeed. Brother Su is not bad either, but still no match for senior sister Bailey, a disciple said regretfully. The cheers from the disciples below the platform grew even more enthusiastic, exploding like thunder close to the ear. Suzume slowly closed his eyes, and at that moment, everyone saw the spiritual energy around him beginning to surge. Space and time started to fracture and become chaotic, waves of turmoil enveloping him. When his entire body emitted a faint blue light, the previously shattered space unexpectedly began to recover. Within 1 meter of his body, this restored space emitted a pale blue glow. Suzaime's eyes snapped open, a blue light flickering within them, and he whispered as he looked at Bailey Xiao. Way of inquiry, 19th form, the 8th type, the deep blue world. This move was inspired by the destruction of a small secret realm that Suzume witnessed in his previous life, leading him to create this vain skill. In this life, he had created his own true fate world, and his comprehension and manipulation of it were even more profound and effortless. Bailey Xiao snorted coldly and charged with her sword raised, her speed so fast that not even a blur was left behind. In the eyes of ordinary people, she seemed to disappear from the platform. With a clang, the crisp sound of sword clashing rang out, and the longsword was blocked by Tyrant Shadow. Everyone turned towards the sound, only to see that Bailey Xiao had somehow already reached Suzume's back. Yet what astonished everyone more was that Suzume had actually blocked that sword. Bailey Xiao's eyes shifted slightly and she thrust out with her sword again, this time appearing at Suzume's side. Another clang resounded, sparks flew between the blade and sword, and Suzume calmly looked at Bailey Xiao, saying lightly, "It's no use, within my deep blue world, I am the dominator." Bailey Xiao retreated several steps, her white clothes fluttering, accompanied by her pure white hair. She looked deeply at Suzume. She had not expected her most confident speed to be countered by Suzume. "If you have no other tricks up your sleeve, then it's my turn," Suzume said with a light chuckle. Within his deep blue world, the space and time were defined by him. No matter how fast Bailey Xiao was, she couldn't escape his sight. Chapter 140. Bailey Xiao took a deep breath, her eyes closed slightly, and the spiritual energy around her began to churn. A lotus flower slowly bloomed beneath her, and her entire body floated in midair. It was as if endless great Tao were fermenting within this lotus. As the petals of the lotus gradually unfolded, the sound of the great Tao arose, and in an instant everything became silent around everyone's ears, no matter how noisy the surroundings were or how loud their own clamorous voices had been. At this moment, everyone seemed as if they had gone deaf, hearing no sound at all. Watching the lotus flower bloom little by little, everyone's spirits seemed to be drawn to it as the lotus flower bloomed completely. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth surged instantaneously, and the color of the lotus gradually turned green. Bailey Xiao stood on the green lotus, her gaze profound and limitless, her aura roaring around her like a long dragon. However, all this had not ended as the green lotus blossomed. Another lotus began to condense in front of her. The lotus condensed rapidly, transforming into a black lotus in the blink of an eye. Behind the black lotus, more and more lotuses began to condense and bloom in midair, a total of 8. Green, black, white, blue, red, yellow, purple, orange. When all 8 lotus flowers had condensed, Bailey Xiao stepped on the path paved by the lotuses, walking step by step through the void, and with each step, her aura grew stronger. These lotuses look familiar, a disciple below muttered in confusion. It's the myriad Tao lotus, the 11th ranked divine artifact on the list of wonders of the world, exclaimed a disciple, shouting loudly, this is not the real myriad Tao lotus. The green lotus of the myriad Tao lotus is still in the cleansing sword pond of our true martial holy sect. As for the other lotuses, they disappeared with the ascension of Empress Hong Tian, whispered some knowledgeable disciples. I've read some records about Empress Hong Tian. It is said that back then, the Empress comprehended the mysteries of the myriad Tao lotus and created a vain skill of her own, but I do not know if it is true. Bailey Xiao stood in the air, her gaze cold and emotionless, while beneath her feet, all 8 lotuses bloomed and spun. Mists of energy circulated within them, and when Bailey Xiao waved her hands, beams of light shot out from each of the 8 lotuses. Intertwining lights of 8 different colors. As the lights of 8 different colors fused, the 8 lotuses beneath Bailey Xiao's feet also began to merge with each other. In the process of fusion, the sound of the great Tao rang out continuously, quiet in the heart like the sound of a stream trickling under a bridge, and the spiritual energy overhead was almost too dense to disperse. Su Zimei watched this scene with a concentrated gaze, then sat down cross-legged. Placing the curved blade in front of him, Su Zimei's actions quickly attracted the attention of many people below. What is Brother Su doing? Someone in the crowd asked in confusion. Don't know. Have you noticed that we have never seen any of the vain skills Brother Su is using before? Another disciple said curiously. When Su Zimei placed the curved blade in front of him, a dazzling light began to emanate from his body. This light shrouded the blade, and Tyrant Shadow started to tremble slightly. Bailey Xiao walked through the void, her feet's lotus finally condensed completely, turning into a single chaos-colored lotus. Bailey Xiao waved her right hand, and the lotus burst forth with endless radiance, shooting up towards the sky, then rushed towards Su Zimei. At this moment, Su Zimei slowly stood up, the Tyrant Shadow in his hand trembling slightly, a deeper gray spiritual energy spreading over the blade. As this gray spiritual energy spread, the sound of the great Tao that had been ringing from the myriad Tao lotus began to tremble. Bailey Xiao's brow furrowed slightly as she felt a wave of fear emanating from the myriad Tao lotus. The pinnacle of the way, it's the pinnacle of the way. While others might not understand, how could the sect masters of the great sect sitting below the arena not know? Qing Shan, your son has comprehended the pinnacle of the way at such a young age. His future is truly limitless, Luo Changhe said with a smile next to him. The other sect masters around them also began discussing in low voices. Su Qingshan's gaze was intense as he watched the gray spiritual energy enveloping Su Zimei's sword body when the myriad Tao lotus rushed towards him. The sky-blocking lotus petals carried with them an endless Taoist charm. As they attacked, Su Zimei let out a light laugh and whispered softly, Way of Inquiry 19th form, the 9th strike, line between heaven and earth. He wielded the curved blade in his hand with all his might, the gray spiritual energy shrouded in the blade chi, and in that moment space entered in eternal collapse. When the two collided, the explosion everyone imagined did not occur. Instead, they felt the world before their eyes vanish. In that vast mist, a streak of blade chi split the world, and at this moment, everyone's vision brightened. In their world, it seemed there was nothing left but this streak of blade light. All things converged To one point, and the world began with a single line. The myriad Tao lotus was directly cleaved into pieces, and as the blade light continued fiercely, it headed straight for Bailey Xiao. Enough, Xiao admits defeat, a crisp voice sounded, followed by a great hand reaching through the air, completely shattering Su Zimei's blade light. The sixth elder arrived in the air, protecting Bailey Xiao in front of him, and looked at Su Zimei, saying, Xiao has admitted defeat, this match is yours. Sixth elder, it seems improper for you to intervene in this way. Su Zimei slowly put away Tyrant Shadow, saying with a smile. Xiao Ruoxue glanced in the direction where Su Qingshan was, only to see him with his eyes slightly closed. Seemingly contemplating something, Xiao is the Empress' successor. After all, there's no need for members of the same sect to fight to the death, Xiao Ruoxue said. Su Zimei glanced in the direction of Su Qingshan, and after seeing no sign of intervention from him, he smiled, nodded, and said, if being an elder means you can meddle in the competition at will, I have nothing to say. As Su Zimei stepped down from the stage, everyone's gaze turned towards Su Qingshan, waiting for him to speak. However, Su Qingshan kept his eyes closed the entire time and remained still. Then the sixth elder went down from the arena with Bailey Xiao, and she looked back at Su Zimei deeply, sensing that he hadn't used all his trump cards. The match between Su Zimei and Bailey Xiao ended, and people turned their attention to the nearby match between Chu Yang and Xianyuan Xiantian. Many people didn't know much about Chu Yang except that he had recently become the saint heir of Yinyang's sect, but Xianyuan Zuanshan's reputation was somewhat larger. In fact, Xianyuan Xiantian had been famous for quite a while now. Legend has it that on the day of his birth, a polar light flew down from the horizon and then merged into his body. It was later revealed that the object within that polar light was none other than the Xianyuan body, ranked 100th among the 100 great battle bodies. Even though this battle body was ranked at the very end, none of the 100 great battle bodies were simple.